The morning sun hadn't yet risen when Yumiko Nakamura unlocked the glass doors of Shimizu Technologies. The cleaning cart rattled as she pushed it across the polished marble floor of the empty lobby. At 58, her small frame moved with purpose, every movement efficient from years of routine. Another day, she whispered to herself, turning on just enough lights to work by. For 3 years, Yumiko had cleaned these offices in downtown Tokyo, arriving at 4:30 a.m. and finishing just as the first executives stepped out of their cars. The building was quiet at this hour, just how she liked it. Sometimes she hummed softly while she worked, the melodies keeping her company in the stillness. The grand piano in the lobby caught the dim light, its black surface gleaming even in shadow. It was the first thing Yumiko polished each morning. The company had installed it last year, a showpiece for visitors, a symbol of success and refinement. Few people ever played it. Occasionally, during corporate events, they hired musicians, but mostly it sat silent, collecting fingerprints that Yumiko carefully wiped away. She ran her cloth over its surface, lifting the fallboard to dust the keys. Her fingers hovered for a moment above the ivory. No one knew that long ago in another life those same hands had coaxed music from keys just like these. "Nakamura-san, you're early again," called a voice. Yumiko jumped, quickly lowering the fallboard. "Tanaka-san, good morning." She bowed slightly to the security guard making his rounds. "Always the first one here," he smiled, checking his watch. "The dedication of the invisible workforce, eh? Without you, this place would fall apart in a week." Yumiko nodded politely but said nothing more. After he continued his rounds, she returned to her cart, pulling out her clipboard with the day's checklist. The 10th floor executive bathrooms needed special attention today. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. As she pushed her cart toward the service elevator, she glanced back at the piano. Something pulled at her heart, a feeling she usually kept buried. Before coming to Japan 30 years ago, Yumiko had grown up in a small village outside Shanghai. Her mother had scraped together money for piano lessons, seeing music as her daughter's ticket to a better life. For 12 years, Yumiko had practiced 4 hours daily on their neighbor's out-of-tune upright piano. Her teacher had called her gifted, had even secured her an audition at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. Then her father died suddenly. The family needed money, not music. The audition date had come and gone while Yumiko worked at her uncle's restaurant. Later, she married, had a son, and eventually followed her husband to Japan for work. Life happened, as it always does, and the piano became just another thing she once knew. The service elevator dinged, bringing her back to the present. She had bathrooms to clean, trash to empty, and surfaces to polish. Dreams were for the young. By 6:15 a.m., Yumiko had finished the executive floor. Her knees ached as she knelt to wipe baseboards, but her face remained peaceful. This job had put her son through university. He was an engineer now, working in Osaka. When he called, he always asked if she would retire, move closer to him and his family. "You don't need to clean toilets anymore, Mom," he would say. But what would she do all day? Her husband had passed 5 years ago. Her small apartment was tidy and empty. At least here she had purpose. The company paid fairly, and her co-workers respected her thoroughness. Some of the younger executives even knew her name. Back in the lobby, Yumiko checked her watch, 6:45 a.m. She was ahead of schedule. The first employees wouldn't arrive until 7:30, and the cleaning supervisor only came in at 7:15 to check her work. The lobby was still empty, bathed in the soft glow of morning light now streaming through the eastern windows. The piano stood in a patch of sunlight, almost glowing. Yumiko looked around. Only the security cameras would see, and Tanaka-san was probably dozing in his booth by now. She walked slowly to the piano, her heart suddenly racing. She sat on the bench, her cleaning uniform crinkling as she adjusted her posture. The bench was too low. Proper height was important for wrist position. Her old teacher's voice echoed in her mind. Sit tall like a queen on her throne. Yumiko lifted the fallboard again. The keys were cool under her fingertips. She pressed one note, middle C, just to hear it. The sound rang clear in the empty lobby. She hadn't touched a piano in years. The last time was at her son's wedding, when the venue had a small upright in the corner. She had played a simple tune while guests were finding their seats before anyone realized it was the groom's mother at the keys. Would her fingers remember? Muscle memory was strange that way. Sometimes the body remembered what the mind forgot. She played a C major scale, slowly at first, then with more confidence. Her fingers felt stiff, but they found their way. The scale became a simple melody, Sakura. Sakura, the traditional Japanese folk song she had taught herself when she first arrived in the country, trying to embrace her new home. The music filled the lobby, bouncing off marble and glass. Yumiko closed her eyes, letting herself disappear into the sound. When she finished the folk song, her hands moved automatically to something more challenging. Chopin. The Nocturne in E-flat major. Fontaine No. 2, her audition piece from long ago. The piece she had practiced until her fingers bled, until she could play it in her sleep. It came back slowly. A missed note here, a fumbled passage there, but it came. The music unfurled like a forgotten language suddenly remembered. Her left hand provided the gentle pulse while her right spun the delicate melody above it. The piece spoke of longing, of beauty tinged with sadness. It was the sound of what might have been. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes, but Yumiko didn't stop playing. This moment was hers alone, or so she thought. "That's beautiful," said a soft voice. Yumiko's hands crashed onto the keys in surprise. She stood quickly, nearly knocking over the bench. A young woman from the accounting department, Hana Yoshida, stood a few meters away, holding a takeout coffee cup. "I'm so sorry." Yumiko bowed deeply, mortified. "I shouldn't have. The piano is not for. I was just. Please don't apologize," Hana said, stepping closer. "That was Chopin, wasn't it?" "It was lovely." Yumiko nodded, her face burning with embarrassment. "I was just testing if it was in tune," she lied. "For the reception tonight. I didn't know you could play," Hana said, her eyes curious. "Where did you learn?" "Long ago. In China," Yumiko answered, already backing toward her cleaning cart. "It's nothing. Please forget it." "But it wasn't nothing," Hana insisted. "You play beautifully." "Does Shimizu-san know you can play like that? The CEO?" The thought of him knowing made Yumiko's stomach clench. "No, please. It's not important. I'm just the cleaning lady." Hana looked like she wanted to say more, but Yumiko had already grabbed her cart and was pushing it quickly toward the service area. "Your secret's safe with me," Hana called after her, "but it's a shame to hide such talent." Yumiko didn't respond. Her heart was still racing as she stored her cart in the maintenance closet and gathered her personal belongings. What had she been thinking? If her supervisor found out she'd been playing the company's piano instead of working, she could lose her job. At her age, finding another position would be difficult. Yet as she rode the bus home, her fingers tapped the melody on her knees. The music had awakened something inside her, a part of herself she had packed away long ago. Like winter clothes in summer, in her tiny apartment, Yumiko made tea and looked at the framed photo of her son's family. Her grandson was starting piano lessons next month. Her daughter-in-law had mentioned it during their last video call. "He has your musical genes," her son had said, though he'd never actually heard her play properly. Yumiko sipped her tea, her mind replaying the Chopin piece. There had been so many mistakes, so much stiffness in her playing, but underneath, the music had still been there waiting all these years. Tomorrow she would be more careful. She would stick to her routine, be invisible as always. The piano was not for cleaning ladies, but as she drifted off to sleep, her hands still remembered the feeling of the keys, and in her dreams she played perfectly, her teacher smiling beside her, the Shanghai Conservatory waiting with open doors. For a week after being discovered at the piano, Yumiko arrived even earlier to her cleaning shift. She kept her head down, focused only on her tasks, and avoided the lobby until she was certain others would be present. The memory of Hana catching her still made her face burn with embarrassment. Yet each morning as she wiped down the gleaming black surface, something inside her ached. Her fingers would twitch slightly, remembering the feel of the keys, the music that had briefly filled the empty space. On Friday morning, Yumiko was mopping the employee break room when Hana appeared in the doorway. "Good morning." "Nakamura-san," she said with a small bow. Yumiko bowed deeper in return. "Yoshida-san, can I help you with something?" She kept her eyes lowered, hoping the young accountant hadn't told others about what she'd witnessed. "I've been looking for you all week," Hana said, stepping carefully around the wet floor. "You disappeared so quickly the other day. I wanted to ask you something." Yumiko wrung out her mop, keeping her hands busy. I have many floors to clean before the workday begins. Of course, Hana nodded. I won't keep you long. I was wondering if you would play again sometime. Maybe during lunch? A few of us eat in the lobby sometimes and… No, Yumiko interrupted, then immediately apologized for her rudeness. I'm sorry, but no. That was inappropriate of me. The piano is for guests and special occasions, not for cleaning staff. Hana tilted her head. Who says? There's no rule about it. There doesn't need to be a rule. Some things are understood. Yumiko resumed mopping, hoping the conversation would end. Well, I think it's a waste, Hana sighed. A beautiful piano just sitting there. And someone who plays so wonderfully. Just cleaning floors. The words stung, though Yumiko knew Hana hadn't meant to be cruel. We all have our place, she said quietly. I'm content with mine. Was that true? The question followed her through the rest of her shift. As she dusted the framed awards in the executive hallway, Yumiko found herself staring at a photo of CEO Shimizu accepting a business leadership prize. He stood tall and confident beside the golden trophy, his success captured for everyone to admire. What would it be like, she wondered, to have your talents recognized instead of hidden, to be valued for something beyond your usefulness? The following Monday, Yumiko arrived to find a note taped to her supply closet door. The handwriting was neat and precise. The piano misses you. 7:15 a.m. in the lobby? I promise no one else will be there. She should throw it away. She almost did. But something made her fold the note carefully and slip it into her pocket instead. At 7:12, Yumiko stood in the corridor just off the lobby, peering around the corner. Hana sat alone on one of the leather couches, scrolling through her phone. The lobby was otherwise empty, the early morning light casting long shadows across the floor. Yumiko checked her watch. She had already finished her assigned tasks for this section of the building. Her supervisor wouldn't arrive for another 20 minutes. She took a deep breath and stepped into the lobby. Hana looked up and smiled. You came. Just for a minute, Yumiko said. I still have work to do. Of course, Hana gestured to the piano. Would you play something small? Just for me? Yumiko hesitated. Why are you doing this? The young woman seemed surprised by the question. Because when I heard you play, it was the most beautiful thing I'd experienced in this building. Because art should be shared, because… She paused, looking slightly embarrassed. Because my grandmother was a pianist too, before arthritis took that away from her. When I heard you play, I thought of her. Yumiko hadn't expected such an honest answer. She nodded slowly, then walked to the piano. As she sat down, she noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Something small, she said, as much to herself as to Hana. She began with a simple piece she had taught to beginners back in China, a gentle melody that flowed like a stream over smooth stones. As she played, the tension in her shoulders eased. The notes came more naturally than before, her fingers remembering their old confidence. When she finished, Hana clapped softly. Beautiful, she said. Truly beautiful. A voice from the elevator bank made them both jump. What's going on here? Yumiko's supervisor, Mrs. Kato, stood with her clipboard, her expression a mixture of confusion and disapproval. Nakamura-san, why are you at the piano instead of finishing your duties? Her voice was sharp. It's my fault, Hana interjected quickly. I asked her to play. I had a difficult call with a client coming up and I needed something to calm my nerves. Mrs. Kato frowned. Nakamura-san is not here for entertainment, Yoshida-san. She has responsibilities. I've finished my assigned section, Yumiko said quietly. I was about to move to the next floor. See? Hana smiled brightly at the supervisor. No harm done. And it was so lovely. Don't you think the company would appreciate knowing they have such talent already in the building? For events and such. Mrs. Kato seemed unmoved. Nakamura-san, please continue with your work. Yoshida-san, in the future, please don't disrupt our cleaning schedule. As Yumiko gathered herself to leave, Hana called after her. Same time Wednesday? Mrs. Kato shot her a look of warning, but Yumiko couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips as she pushed her cart toward the elevator. Wednesday came, but Yumiko didn't go to the lobby at 7:15. She told herself it was because she didn't want to risk trouble with her supervisor. The real reason? The fear blooming in her chest whenever she thought about playing again. About caring again was harder to admit. Instead, She cleaned the glass walls of the conference room with extra attention, making sure no streaks remained. Through the spotless surface, she could see into the lobby where Hana waited alone, checking her watch every few minutes. By Friday, guilt had replaced fear. During her lunch break, Yumiko found Hana in the company cafeteria. "I'm sorry," she said, standing awkwardly beside the younger woman's table. "About Wednesday." Hana smiled and gestured for her to sit. "No need to apologize. I understand. Your job is important to you." Yumiko sat, placing her small bento box on the table. "It's not just that, How could she explain? Playing again after so long, it brings back difficult memories. Of China, your family, of dreams that didn't happen. Yumiko opened her lunch, arranging her chopsticks precisely. When you get older, it's better to focus on what is, not what could have been. Hana considered this as she ate a bite of her noodles. My grandmother says the opposite. She says the older you get, the more important it is to reclaim the joy you set aside. They ate in silence for a moment before Hana spoke again. Some of us have a small music club. Nothing formal, just a few employees who play instruments. We meet on Saturdays at my apartment. You should join us. Yumiko shook her head immediately. That wouldn't be appropriate. I'm staff, not what? Not a person with talent? Not someone who loves music? Hana leaned forward. Outside these walls, those distinctions don't matter. The idea was absurd. Yumiko socializing with young professionals from the company, playing music again, as if she were still that hopeful girl from Shanghai. Yet she found herself asking, "What time on Saturday?" The next morning, Yumiko arrived at work to find several executives gathered in the lobby, gesturing toward the piano. Her stomach dropped. Had someone complained about her playing? Was she in trouble? She tried to slip past unnoticed with her cleaning cart, but Mrs. Kato intercepted her. "Nakamura-san, these gentlemen would like to speak with you." One of the men stepped forward, Mr. Tanaka from marketing. "Nakamura-san, we understand you're quite the pianist." Yumiko bowed slightly, her heart racing. "I played a little many years ago. Nothing special." "That's not what Yoshida-san tells us," said another executive. "She says you play beautifully." "We have a situation," Mr. Tanaka explained. "The pianist hired for tonight's client reception has fallen ill. Yoshida-san suggested you might be willing to fill in. We would compensate you, of course." Yumiko stared at them in disbelief. "Me? Play for company clients?" "Just background music during the cocktail hour," Mr. Tanaka assured her. "Nothing complicated. Yoshida-san was quite insistent that you're more than qualified." Mrs. Kato looked as surprised as Yumiko felt. "This is highly unusual," she said. "Indeed," agreed Mr. Tanaka. "But sometimes talent appears in unexpected places." Later, as Yumiko polished the executive bathroom mirrors, her reflection showed a face caught between terror and tentative excitement. Play for company executives and their important clients? It was madness. She hadn't practiced properly in decades. She would embarrass herself, maybe even lose her job. Yet when she closed her eyes, she could almost hear her old piano teacher's voice. Music is never forgotten by the heart. The fingers may stumble, but the soul remembers. During her afternoon break, she found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. She had bookmarked several piano performances on YouTube, videos she watched late at night when she couldn't sleep. Now she studied them with new purpose, her fingers moving silently in her lap, practicing without keys. As she left work that evening, Hana caught up with her at the employee exit. "Did they ask you about tonight?" "Yes," Yumiko said, unable to keep the anxiety from her voice. "Why would you suggest such a thing?" "I'm not ready to play for people like that." "Because I believe in you," Hana said simply. "And because everyone deserves a second chance at their dreams." Yumiko shook her head. "Dreams are for the young." "That," Hana said with a gentle smile, "is the most untrue thing I've ever heard." As the subway carried her home, Yumiko's mind filled with music, the pieces she might play, the ones she still remembered. For the first time in years, she felt both terrified and alive. Yumiko stood in front of her bedroom mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The black dress was simple, her only good outfit, purchased years ago for her son's university graduation. She had spent the afternoon pressing it carefully, making sure every wrinkle surrendered to the hot iron. Now as evening approached, doubt pressed just as firmly against her resolve. "This is foolishness," she told her reflection. "You are not a performer. You are a cleaning lady." Yet she had said yes. After leaving work, she had ridden the train to her small apartment, mind racing with all the reasons she should call Mr. Tanaka and decline. Instead, she had practiced on her tabletop, fingers moving over the imaginary keys while she hummed the melodies. Her phone buzzed with a message from Hana. "You'll be amazing. Just be yourself. See you tonight." Such confidence from someone who had heard her play only once. Yumiko slipped her feet into her only pair of dress shoes, low black heels, practical and unassuming like their owner. She tucked a few hairpins into her simple bun, applied a touch of lipstick saved for special occasions, and took a deep breath. For tonight only, she told herself. Remember who you were. The train ride back to Shimizu Technologies felt surreal. Usually, Yumiko traveled in the opposite direction at this hour, heading home in her cleaning uniform, while others in business attire headed to after-work gatherings. Now she sat among them, an invisible boundary crossed. The company lobby had transformed for the evening reception. Soft lighting created pools of amber glow, catering staff circulated with trays of delicate food, and the usual security desk had become a bar serving sake and wine. The piano waited in its usual spot, but tonight a small spotlight illuminated its polished surface. Yumiko slipped in through the side entrance, hoping to remain unnoticed until it was time to play. From her hidden vantage point, she scanned the room. At least 50 people filled the space, executives she recognized from her early morning cleaning rounds, now laughing and chatting with visitors in expensive suits and dresses. Nakamura-san. Mr. Tanaka appeared at her side. You're here, excellent. We've scheduled you to begin in about 15 minutes. Just some background music while everyone mingles. Nothing too dramatic. Elegant background pieces, you understand? You can play for about 45 minutes. Yumiko nodded, her throat too dry for words. The CEO will be making remarks after your performance, so we'll need you to finish precisely on time. He checked his watch. There's water by the piano. Any questions? She shook her head. Wonderful. And may I say, you look very professional this evening. With that, he disappeared back into the crowd. Yumiko took small, careful steps toward the piano, feeling as if she were walking in a dream. As she passed through clusters of guests, no one seemed to notice her. She was, after all, practiced in the art of invisibility. For 3 years, she had cleaned around these same people, and they had rarely looked up from their phones or conversations. As she settled onto the piano bench, adjusting its height with hands that trembled slightly, she saw Hana across the room. The young accountant gave her an encouraging smile and a subtle thumbs up. Yumiko placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. She started with something gentle, Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece that floated like moonlight on water. Her fingers were stiff at first, the notes not quite as fluid as they should be, but by the middle of the piece something shifted. The music began to flow more naturally, muscle memory awakening after its long slumber. The conversations around her continued, her playing just pleasant background sound to the networking and business discussions. This was a relief. Better to be wallpaper than the center of attention. As one piece ended, she moved seamlessly into another, Satie's Gymnopédie No. 1, then a Schubert impromptu. 20 minutes into her performance, Yumiko began to relax. Perhaps this would be fine after all. Just another job to complete, another service to provide. She moved into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece Hana had first heard her play. This time her fingers remembered more clearly. The melody sang above the gentle pulse of the left hand, each phrase rising and falling like breath. Yumiko closed her eyes, allowing herself to be carried by the music. When she opened them again, she noticed something had changed. The buzz of conversation had dimmed. Several guests stood near the piano, cocktails forgotten in their hands as they listened. Among them was a tall man she recognized immediately as CEO Shimizu. Panic fluttered in her chest. She nearly stopped playing, but instinct kept her fingers moving. The CEO's face revealed nothing. No displeasure, but no particular enjoyment either. He simply listened, his eyes fixed on her hands. Yumiko looked down, focusing on the keys rather than the audience that had begun to gather. She finished the nocturne and, without pause, began another Chopin piece, a waltz this time, lighter and more playful. As she played, memories surfaced like fish rising to the surface of a pond. Her mother scrubbing laundry to pay for her lessons, her teacher pushing her toward perfection, the letter of acceptance to the conservatory that had arrived too late, after her father's funeral, after the decision to work had already been made. For the first time in decades, these memories brought not just sadness but something else, a recognition of her younger self, the girl who had loved music enough to practice until her fingers ached. That girl was still here, her dreams delayed but not entirely abandoned. The waltz concluded, and before the applause could begin, Yumiko transitioned to a Japanese folk melody, Sakura, the same song she had played that morning when Hana first discovered her. But this time she added variations, embellishing the simple tune with flourishes that transformed it into something both familiar and new. She became aware of the time. Only 5 minutes remained in her allotted slot. For her final piece, she chose Beethoven's Fürelise, recognizable to even casual listeners. As the final notes faded, the room erupted in applause. Yumiko stood and bowed deeply, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and unexpected pleasure. "Beautiful playing," said a deep voice beside her. CEO Shimizu had approached the piano while others were still applauding. "I wasn't aware we had a pianist of your caliber on staff." "I'm just the morning cleaning lady," Yumiko said, bowing again. Filling in because of an emergency, something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps. "The cleaning lady, really?" Mr. Tanaka appeared at the CEO's side. "Nakamura-san was kind enough to step in when our hired pianist fell ill," he explained hastily. "Yoshida-san from accounting recommended her." "Interesting." The CEO studied Yumiko for a moment. "Where did you train?" "I didn't, not formally," she answered, eyes lowered. "I had lessons in China where I grew up, many years ago. Yet you play Chopin like you've performed it on concert stages." There was a question in his statement. "I practiced that piece for an audition at the Shanghai Conservatory," Yumiko admitted, "but I never attended." Before the CEO could respond, Mr. Tanaka gestured toward the small podium set up near the piano. "Shimizu-san, we should begin your remarks. The clients are waiting." The CEO nodded, but before turning away, he said to Yumiko, "We should talk more about your music. Perhaps Monday?" "My office, 9 a.m. It wasn't a request." Yumiko could only nod as he walked away. As the reception continued, several guests approached to compliment her playing. Each time, Yumiko bowed and thanked them politely, uncomfortable with attention she had never sought. When she finally slipped away to gather her things, Hana was waiting by the coat check. "You were magnificent," the young woman exclaimed. "Did you see their faces? Even old Shimizu couldn't hide how impressed he was." "He wants to meet on Monday," Yumiko said, still unable to believe it. "Why would the CEO want to meet with a cleaner about piano music?" Hana grinned. "Because talent recognizes talent. My friend in HR says he studied music before business. His mother was a concert pianist or something." This new information sat uneasily with Yumiko. "I'm not looking for special treatment. I just want to do my job without complications." "Is that really all you want?" Hana asked gently. The question followed Yumiko home on the late train, echoing in her mind as she removed her dress and hung it carefully in her small closet. Was that all she wanted? To clean floors and dust shelves until retirement? To hide her music in the corners of her life? A secret pleasure glimpsed only in stolen moments? Her son called as she was preparing for bed. "Mom, I saw your text. You played piano at a company event?" "That's wonderful. Did they record it? I wish I could have heard you." "It was nothing special," she said. "Just background music." "But you've barely touched a piano since Dad died," her son persisted. "This is a big deal. Are you going to play again?" "The CEO wants to meet on Monday," she admitted. Her son's excitement bubbled through the phone. "That's amazing. Maybe they'll hire you to play regularly. You could finally quit cleaning." "I'm too old to start a new career," Yumiko said, "and I know nothing about professional performing." "Mom," her son's voice softened, "you're only 58. Dad's been gone 5 years. It's okay to want something more." After they hung up, Yumiko lay awake, her fingers moving silently above her blanket, playing invisible melodies in the darkness. The CEO's words repeated in her mind. "We should talk more about your music." What could come of such a conversation? Nothing that wouldn't disrupt the careful routine of her life. Yet as sleep finally claimed her, Yumiko found herself not dreading Monday morning, but curious, perhaps even hopeful about what it might bring. Monday morning arrived with a gentle rain tapping against Yumiko's bedroom window. She had barely slept, her mind replaying Friday's performance and imagining a dozen different scenarios for her meeting with CEO Shimizu. None of them seemed realistic. She dressed in her cleaning uniform as usual. There was no reason to do otherwise. The meeting wasn't until 9 a.m., and she still had her regular duties to complete beforehand. Mrs. Kato had been clear about that when Yumiko called to request the brief time off. The executive floors still need cleaning. Nakamura-san, her supervisor had said, this special treatment doesn't change your responsibilities. The subway was crowded with Monday morning commuters, everyone damp from the rain and lost in their own thoughts. Yumiko held the handrail watching droplets race down the windows. For most of her life she had been like those droplets, following the predetermined path of gravity, taking the course of least resistance. When she arrived at Shimizu Technologies, the lobby was quiet. The evidence of Friday's reception had been cleared away. The space returned to its usual corporate sterility. The piano sat in its spot, closed and silent once more. Yumiko couldn't help herself. She walked over and ran a hand along its polished surface. Not as a cleaner this time, but as a musician. The memory of playing it properly with an audience still felt dreamlike. You should be cleaning the 10th floor, not daydreaming, came Mrs. Kato's sharp voice behind her. Yumiko turned, bowing slightly. Yes, of course. I was just making sure there were no water rings from the reception. Her supervisor's expression softened slightly. Your playing was unexpected. Several executives mentioned it to me this weekend. Coming from Mrs. Kato, this was high praise. Yumiko bowed again, deeper this time. Thank you for allowing me to represent the cleaning staff. Just don't let it distract you from your actual job, Mrs. Kato said, already turning away. And don't be late for your meeting with Shimizu-san. The next 2 hours passed in a familiar routine of dusting, vacuuming, and wiping surfaces. Yumiko found comfort in the methodical work, in knowing exactly what to do and how to do it well. Whatever the CEO wanted to discuss, at least she had this, her competence, her reliability. At 8:50 a.m., she changed from her cleaning shoes to the plain black flats she'd brought for the meeting. She removed her work apron, smoothed her hair, and took the executive elevator to the top floor. The CEO's assistant, a young man in a perfectly tailored suit, looked up from his computer as she approached. Nakamura-san. When she nodded, he continued, Shimizu-san is expecting you. 1 moment, please. He pressed a button on his desk phone and announced her arrival. Yumiko clasped her hands to stop their trembling. This was the first time in 3 years of employment that she had been in this part of the building, as anything other than someone emptying trash bins and polishing surfaces. The contrast was disorienting. Please go in, the assistant said, gesturing to the large wooden door behind him. Yumiko entered a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Tokyo skyline. The rain had cleared, leaving the city gleaming in the morning sun. CEO Shimizu stood behind a massive desk reviewing documents. He looked up as she entered and motioned to a seating area with 2 leather armchairs. Nakamura-san, thank you for coming. Please sit. Yumiko perched on the edge of one chair, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Thank you for inviting me, Shimizu-san. The CEO sat across from her, studying her with an intensity that made her want to look away. She forced herself to maintain eye contact, though everything in her training, both as a Japanese woman and as cleaning staff, urged deference. I've been thinking about your performance on Friday, he began. It was quite remarkable. You are very kind, Yumiko murmured. Not kind, accurate. His tone was matter-of-fact. I studied piano seriously until business school. My mother was a professional pianist. She played with the Tokyo Philharmonic for 20 years. I know good playing when I hear it. Yumiko said nothing, unsure how to respond to this unexpected personal revelation. Tell me, he continued, why are you cleaning offices instead of performing? Or teaching at the very least. The question was direct, almost blunt. Yumiko took a breath before answering. Life chose a different path for me, she said simply. My father died just before my conservatory audition. My family needed money, not music. Later I married, had a son, moved to Japan. By then too much time had passed, and now, Your son is grown, I assume? Yes. He's an engineer in Osaka, married with a child of his own. So what's stopping you now? The CEO leaned forward slightly. Talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. Yumiko felt a flicker of something between irritation and sorrow. With respect, Shimizu-san, it's not that simple. I'm 58 years old. I have no formal qualifications. No one hires a pianist who trained seriously 40 years ago and then stopped. I might. The words hung in the air between them. Yumiko blinked, certain she had misheard. I don't understand. Shimizu stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. My mother started the Shimizu Foundation before she died. Among other things, we fund music education in underprivileged schools. We've been looking for someone to oversee the program, someone who understands both music and the reality of choosing practicality over passion. He turned back to face her. The job involves coordinating with schools, selecting instruments for donation, arranging for teachers, occasionally performing demonstrations. It requires musical knowledge, organizational skills, and a certain empathy for those whose talents might otherwise go undeveloped. Yumiko's mind raced. Was he truly offering her a position? It seemed impossible. I have no experience with such work, she said finally. No, but you have experience with music, with work ethics, and with life making difficult choices for you. He returned to his seat. The position pays more than your current role and offers more reasonable hours. You would report directly to the foundation director, not to me. Why? The question slipped out before Yumiko could stop it. Why would you offer this to someone like me? Something shifted in Shimizu's expression, a softening around the eyes perhaps. My mother was a brilliant pianist, but she was also a practical woman. She used to tell me that talent appears in unlikely places, and that recognizing it was as important as possessing it. He paused, then added more quietly. When you played Chopin on Friday, you reminded me of her, not your technique, which is understandably rusty, but your interpretation, the emotion behind the notes. She would have appreciated that. Yumiko felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I would need to think about it. Of course. The CEO stood, signaling the end of their meeting. Take a few days. The foundation director, Mrs. Yamamoto, will contact you with details. As Yumiko rose to leave, Shimizu added, one more thing. Regardless of your decision about the foundation position, I'd like you to play at our quarterly all-hands meeting next week. Paid, of course. I think our employees should hear what you can do. Yumiko bowed deeply. I would be honored. Outside in the hallway, she leaned against the wall for a moment, legs suddenly weak. Had that conversation really happened? A job with the Shimizu Foundation? Playing at the company meeting? It felt like she had stepped into someone else's life. The executive assistant glanced up at her. Are you all right, Nakamura-san? Yes, she managed. Just surprised. Back on the cleaning floors, Yumiko moved through her tasks automatically, her mind elsewhere. When Hana found her wiping down the break room counters at lunchtime, the young accountant could barely contain her curiosity. How did it go? What did he want? Tell me everything. Yumiko smiled, still processing it herself. He offered me a job with the Shimizu Foundation, working with music programs in schools. Hana's squeal of delight turned heads in the break room. That's amazing. Are you going to take it? I don't know, Yumiko admitted. It's a lot to consider. What's there to consider? It's perfect for you, was it? As Yumiko finished her shift and headed home, the question followed her. The offer was unexpected, generous even, but it would mean stepping into the unknown, leaving the safety of routine for something she wasn't sure she could do well. Her phone rang as she entered her apartment, her son calling for an update. So? What did the big boss want? His voice was eager. Yumiko told him about the foundation offer, trying to keep her tone neutral. Mom, that's incredible. His enthusiasm matched Hana's. You have to take it. I'm not qualified, she protested. I've been cleaning offices for years. And before that, you raised me, managed our household, kept everything running smoothly when Dad was working late. You're more qualified than you think. His voice softened. Remember when you taught piano to the neighbors' kids for extra money? They adored you. That was different. This would be official, with responsibilities, expectations, and music, he finished for her. It would have music, Mom. When was the last time you had that in your daily life? After they hung up, Yumiko made tea and sat by her small window. watching evenings settle over the city. Her son's question echoed. When was the last time music had been part of her daily life? She closed her eyes, remembering the feeling of performing on Friday, the way the world had narrowed to just her and the piano, the sensation of being fully present in a way she rarely experienced anymore. Even with the nerves and pressure, there had been joy there, buried under decades of practicality. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. This is Yamamoto from the Shimizu Foundation. When would be convenient to discuss the position the CEO mentioned? I'm available tomorrow afternoon. Yumiko stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. One path led back to the comfortable familiarity of cleaning, of invisibility. The other led somewhere new, somewhere both frightening and strangely like coming home. She took a deep breath and began to type her reply. The company auditorium buzzed with hundreds of employees. Quarterly meetings were mandatory at Shimizu Technologies, and today every seat was filled. Executives occupied the front rows while support staff, including the cleaning team, sat in the back. Yumiko, however, wasn't in her usual place among her colleagues. She waited in a small room off to the side of the stage, hands clasped tightly in her lap. A sleek digital piano had been brought in for the occasion, not the grand from the lobby, but still a quality instrument. She had arrived early to test it, fingers dancing over the keys to ensure they responded the way she needed them to. Now, as CEO Shimizu's presentation on quarterly results neared its end, her heart pounded so loudly she was sure others must hear it. The past week had unfolded like a dream. She had met with Mrs. Yamamoto from the Shimizu Foundation, a kind but businesslike woman who had explained the position in detail. The salary was indeed better than her cleaning job, the hours more reasonable, and the work aligned with something she had thought lost to her forever. After 2 sleepless nights, Yumiko had accepted the offer. Today was her last day as part of the cleaning staff. Tomorrow she would begin training at the foundation. And now, the CEO's voice filtered through the closed door. Before we conclude, I have something special to share with you all. Yumiko stood, smoothing the simple navy blue dress she had purchased yesterday, her first new outfit in years. Her son had insisted on sending money when he heard about her career change. An investment in your new life, he had called it. Many of you attended our client reception last week, Shimizu continued, and heard some remarkable piano music. What most of you don't know is that our pianist that evening was not the professional musician we had hired, but someone who has been part of our company for 3 years, though many of you have never noticed her. A murmur ran through the audience. Yumiko Nakamura has been on our cleaning staff, arriving before dawn and leaving as most of you are arriving for work. By chance, we discovered she has extraordinary talent that has gone largely unrecognized for decades. The door opened, and a staff member gestured for Yumiko to come out. Legs trembling slightly, she walked onto the stage where CEO Shimizu stood at the podium. The bright lights momentarily blinded her, but as her eyes adjusted, she saw hundreds of faces looking back at her with curiosity. Nakamura-san will be leaving our cleaning staff to join the Shimizu Foundation, the CEO announced. But before she goes, I've asked her to play for us one more time. He turned to her and bowed slightly. The stage is yours. Yumiko bowed in return, then deeper to the audience. She walked to the piano, settled herself on the bench, and took a deep breath. For this performance, she had chosen music that told her story. She began with a Chinese folk melody her mother had sung to her as a child. Simple, wistful, speaking of distant mountains and the yearning for home. Her arrangement added complexity to the traditional tune, weaving in elements that hinted at the classical training she had received. She moved next to Chopin's Raindrop Prelude, the piece she had been practicing when her father died. The repeated notes fell like gentle rain, sometimes peaceful, sometimes building to a storm. It was music of loss and perseverance, emotions she knew intimately. From there, she transitioned to a Japanese composition she had learned after moving to Tokyo, music that spoke of adaptation and finding beauty in new surroundings. As she played, Yumiko felt herself settling into the performance, nerves giving way to the pure joy of sharing music that mattered to her. For her final piece, she had debated for days. Finally, she had chosen Beethoven's Pathétique Sonata, the second movement only, with its singing melody that floated above a gentle pulse. It was music of hope after hardship, of finding one's way back to beauty after a long absence. As the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then applause erupted, startling in its intensity. Yumiko stood and bowed deeply, her eyes moist. When she straightened, she saw that many in the audience were standing. In the back row, her cleaning colleagues, people who had known only her efficiency with a mop and dust cloth, clapped the loudest of all. CEO Shimizu returned to the podium as the applause finally quieted. "Thank you, Nakamura-san. I think we all understand why the Shimizu Foundation is fortunate to have you joining them." He turned to address the room. "Before we conclude, I want to make an observation. Talent exists in unexpected places, often hidden by circumstances, by necessity, or by our own assumptions about where value comes from." He gestured toward Yumiko, who still stood by the piano. "For 3 years, Nakamura-san cleaned our offices expertly while we rushed past her, focused on spreadsheets and deadlines. We might never have discovered her gift if not for a chance encounter. It makes me wonder, what other talents remain hidden around us because we don't take the time to see the full humanity in every person we encounter?" The words hung in the air, and Yumiko felt a wave of emotion so strong she had to look down at her hands. In all her years of invisibility, she had never expected recognition, let alone respect of this kind. As people filed out after the meeting, many stopped to speak with her. Executives who had never made eye contact before, administrative staff who had shared elevator rides in silence, even Mrs. Cato, who simply squeezed her hand and said, "We always knew you were special." Hana pushed through the crowd to hug her. "I knew it. I knew they would love you." She stepped back, eyes bright. "Are you coming to our Saturday music group now that you're officially a musician again?" Yumiko laughed, a free, unguarded sound she hadn't heard from herself in years. "Yes, I think I will." Later, as the auditorium emptied, CEO Shimizu approached her once more. "Was my mother right?" he asked. Yumiko looked at him questioningly. She always said that music finds its way back to those who truly love it, no matter how long the separation. His usually stern face held a hint of something softer, perhaps grief, perhaps gratitude. "I think she would have been pleased to see you today. Your mother sounds like a wise woman," Yumiko said. "I hope I can honor her legacy through the Foundation's work. You already have." He bowed formally, then left her alone with the piano. Yumiko ran her fingers over the keys one last time, feeling the smooth coolness beneath her fingertips. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, learning Foundation protocols, meeting school administrators, stepping into a role she had never imagined for herself. The thought was both terrifying and thrilling. 3 weeks later, Yumiko stood in a cramped classroom in one of Tokyo's poorer districts. 20 children watched with wide eyes as she opened the cases of brand-new violins, flutes, and small keyboards, the Shimizu Foundation's first delivery under her supervision. "Who wants to try first?" she asked, holding up a child-sized violin. A small girl in the back raised her hand hesitantly. When Yumiko placed the instrument in her arms, the child's face transformed with wonder. "It's so pretty," she whispered, touching the polished wood reverently. "Music is like magic," Yumiko told her, showing her how to hold the bow. "It lives inside these instruments, waiting for someone to set it free." As she moved around the room, helping small fingers find their places on keys and strings, Yumiko felt a completeness she had long forgotten. This, the sharing of music, the opening of doors that might otherwise remain closed, this was what she had been meant to do all along. That evening, she visited her son and his family in Osaka, taking the bullet train after work. Her grandson, now 6, proudly showed her his progress on the small keyboard they had bought him. "Grandma, watch," he exclaimed, carefully picking out "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" with concentrated focus. "Beautiful," she praised, sitting beside him. "Would you like to learn something new?" As they played together, her son watched from the doorway, smiling. "I never knew you could play like that, Mom," he said later as they shared tea. "All those years, why didn't you ever tell me?" Yumiko considered the question, turning her teacup in her hands. "Some dreams are too painful to talk about when you think they're lost forever," she said finally. "But they're never truly gone, just waiting for the right moment to return." On her nightstand at home sat a framed photograph, not of her son or grandson, but of the cleaning staff at Shimizu Technologies taken on her last day. They had presented it to her along with a card signed by everyone, including Mrs. Cato, who had written simply, "We always hear the music in people, even when they cannot hear it in themselves." Next to the photograph lay a business card, elegant in its simplicity, Yumiko Nakamura, Music Program Director, Shimizu Foundation. Sometimes at night, before sleep claimed her, she would touch it gently, still hardly believing the path her life had taken. The piano in the company lobby remained, still gleaming under careful daily polishing. But now, employees sometimes noticed gentle music in the early mornings, a new cleaning lady, inspired by Yumiko's story, occasionally playing simple melodies as dawn broke over Tokyo, and no one hurried past without stopping, just for a moment to listen.